Now let's get into what you have going on, because I am so excited that you have made your directorial debut. And this movie is, I told you I was staying up late to watch it. If not now, when? So let's get into that, because you've been producing. We all know you've been acting, but now you've made the leap into directing. So what made you decide that was a decision you wanted to make?
The crazy thing is I always knew that I wanted to direct, but I really just hadn't done it yet. And then my cousin Dijon Talton, he had just come off of the show Glee, and he was going into music, and he was like, "Look, I want to do this music video. Can you help me produce it?" And I was like, "Sure." And then he was like, "Who are we gonna get to direct it?" I was like, "There's this guy. He's great. I'll get him." And he's like, "Well, what if?" He's not available. I was like, well, if he's not available, I'll direct it. Ha ha ha. And the guy wasn't available. And so I, ended up directing it. I was terrified. I felt like I was going to throw up, and I was like, I don't know what I'm doing. And then I realized almost immediately that I've been around it my whole life, and I actually do know what I'm doing, and I know what I want the vision to be. And it just came pretty easily, and I just fell in love with it. And so I kept it simple and just directed a bunch of music videos, did a few short films, and I wasn't really expecting to go into directing a feature just yet. And then when Tamara and I, got together and we're looking for the funding for this movie, and we went out and we found a director, while we were waiting for the funds to come, the director ended up falling out because we'd been waiting for almost, darn near 6 months at that time. And she ended up taking another project that was going to have her wrapped up for 8 months. And so as we were trying to figure out what to do, Tam was like, we talked about directing this together a little while back. What do you think? Do you still want to do it? And I was like, ooh, let me pray about it. And so I prayed about it for about 2 months, and I heard God say once to do it, and then I felt him say to do it twice. And I was like, I don't have a peace about this, Lord. I don't know if I'm ready. I don't know. I was like, I'm going to be obedient to what you're telling me to do. But usually when I'm obedient, I have a peace about it, and I don't have a peace about it. But I'm going to be obedient, but I need you to give me a sign. So me and Tam met up, and I was like, listen, God told me that he wants us to do this. And so I'm going to do it. And that's what it is. And then 8 minutes later, I kid you not, 8 minutes later, the phone rings, and it's the bank saying all the money just came through.
And then you said, if not now, when? Let's go.
If not now, when?
So listen, as a director, right, because this is obviously something that you've been working on, and when you're producing, do you pay yourself?
Yes, but I don't pay myself much because to me, especially when you're doing a smaller budget film, I really want all the money to go on the screen. I can make money off of other projects as an actress and other things, but for me, it's really about I want the quality to be at the top level. I don't want to cut any corners. I won't cut any corners. And getting as much of it on the screen so that the film looks the best that it can look is the most important thing to me.
Now, this is established, and the reason why you were on the show is because you are super established, and we're going to get more into what you have going on now, but I do want to flash back to a young Meagan Good, because you knew early on that you would be on TV and on the big screen from when you were 4 years old. This was something that you wanted to do, correct?
Yeah, I mean, it was more of a hobby. As a kid, it was like other kids like went to ballet class or dance class, and then I went to, auditions or sometimes did a commercial. It wasn't until I was about 13 that I knew that I definitely wanted to do this.
Mm-hmm. And your mom was really supportive of you. And I know your mom travels with you still now to this day, right?
Yeah, she was just with me and Lamaya. We just shot a film for Lifetime where we got to play sisters. And so my mom came out to Jersey with us, and my youngest nephew, Easy, came out with us, and my mom was helping watch the baby. And it's really fun.
That was one of those ripped from the headlines stories that you did for Lifetime. What was the storyline for it?
So it's about this woman who basically was in an abusive relationship with her husband, who was like a really, highly esteemed doctor. And she tried to get her daughter and tried to basically divorce and separate from him. And in the process of that, she found out that he was trying to have her murdered. And this is a true story. And so she ended up faking her own death so that she could ultimately start messing with him and get him to tell on himself.
Man, let me tell you something. These real life stories sometimes are more fascinating than anything anybody could make up or write.
Right.
Because
Crazy.
Now, you've been open about having been in relationships that were toxic in the past. How do you get out of that? Like, if somebody asked you for advice on how you get out, because sometimes you're in something, like we were discussing earlier, and you don't know how to just make it, just be strong enough to leave. So, how did you get the strength to be able to do that?
Um, it really was a God thing, my faith, nothing is more important to me than God is, period. And it really was about like just getting on my knees and saying, God, what am I supposed to be doing right now? And getting that confirmation that that situation wasn't right for me. And then it was like, okay, give me the strength to get out of it. And even when it was hard and I was still very much in love with the person and wanted to be with the person, I loved God more. And I didn't even love myself more at the time, but I loved God more. And so I stepped out on faith that even though in that moment it felt like it was unrealistic that I would get over it, I stepped out doing my part, which is just the action. And then I just had faith that he would bring me through it. And he brought me through it pretty quickly. And I was surprised because I was like, that's all God. And so, I'm just a big believer that faith without works is dead. And so there's the faith part, but you got to match the faith with your actual works, which is your effort and your intention and you at least trying and meet God halfway.
Yeah, sometimes the hardest step is actually leaving. And then later on in life, you look back and you're like, what was I thinking?
What was I thinking? It's crazy.
And it's so good when you finally get to that point where you're like, ooh, I never thought I'd be able to say I'm over this. And
Yeah.
it's like a day by day process.
Yeah, 100%. And I think the biggest thing is you just have to be willing to make that step, that leap of faith of like, and I think also it's not always just the leaving. It's sometimes it's like remembering your worth and your worthiness and loving yourself. And sometimes just getting there is what gives you the strength to leave.
Does it help to tell people around you? Like, obviously, your mom and you're very close to your sister also. Is that something that you hide, or is it something that you let them know so they can be supportive?
I let them know, we are very, very, very open. And my sister will give it to you raw, no chaser. But I appreciate that because I appreciate the honesty, and she's always been like that. And so, yeah, they're my best friends, love them to pieces. And then my other best friend, Amy and Dijon, I just have a lot of good people in my life. And I tend to be very transparent because I think it's important, because you can't always see yourself in the situation. But if you allow someone who has your best interest and that you trust to help you get some perspective, you'll always kind of have a safe place to go.